It's cold cut time. It's pizza time. It's cold cuts and pizza.
Oh yeah.
Hey guys, welcome back to your favorite podcast, Cold Cuts and Pizza. I'm Austin, and again, Nick here today, and we are going to do a continuation of last week. So last week we talked about seeds and clones, starting out, and this week week, right? It's the week, yeah, this week.
Different week.
We're gonna get into transplanting and vegetation, and we'll talk a little bit about mothers too at the end. So Nick will dive us right in.
Hell yeah. Well, thanks for the introduction. Hopefully, everybody here that ends up joining is, having a good week so far. How was your weekend, Austin? Did you have a pretty good weekend? We can go into the pleasantries first, like we like to do. And
Yeah, yeah, it was good. What did I do this weekend? I think I didn't do anything because I did all the traveling the weekend before.
nice, nice.
So yeah, so I stayed home. I'm pretty sure. I don't really remember, so I must have
Must
not
have been a
done
good
anything.
weekend. Well, it must have been a good
Yeah.
weekend.
This weekend. I think I didn't do anything in North Georgia, weren't you?
I was, yeah,
Or
yeah. So I went up to North
somewhere up.
Georgia. Yeah, North Georgia. Got some family pictures taken, and which was super cool. I've never been to this spot that I grew up by. It was cool to check that out. Got some family pictures, and then we went to the Georgia Aquarium, which is sick. Brought the kid there, and I haven't been there in
Yeah.
years, so it's been 5 or 6, 7 years since I've been there. So that was super cool. Got to see some sharks, dude. I got to the jellyfish exhibit, and like if it weren't for if it was like just me, I would have just sat there and like stared at these jellyfish, dude. It was like so mesmerizing, and so like just you just wanted to vibe with them, dude. You know what I mean? If I was like
Do they
smoking,
still
dude.
have? I didn't mean to cut you off,
No,
but
you're
did
good.
they still have the whale shark there?
They do, yeah, yep. So you could go
Yeah,
underneath,
yeah,
like in the great adventure part or whatever, you go underneath and you would see it just kind of come over you. I got a cool video of Miles like staring at it. So it was
nice.
pretty cool.
That's awesome.
It was definitely cool. But yeah, no, it's been good, man. But yeah, we'll kind of just dive in.
Good.
Like Austin said, we're gonna be starting at transplant. And then we have a new special segment that we're going to do once a month. We'll get
Can't
into that.
wait.
Yeah, we'll get into that when we get to it, and then we will go on to the vegetative side, and then if we have time, the mother side as well. Basically, kind of the same thing because it's just an ever long state of veg. So
Yeah, absolutely. That's your favorite, though, isn't it?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Mother
Yeah.
is I love like mothers, dude. That's where you're gonna get your best. I mean, it all starts there, dude. If you don't have good, healthy mothers, then you're screwing yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
all
Absolutely.
right, let me just make
Absolutely.
sure this
That's
audio
your
is
favorite,
working.
though, isn't it?
All right, sweet,
Yeah,
it's
no
good.
problem. Hey, do
And
we have the intro video for the new segment we're
oh yeah,
doing?
yeah, no, I've got the audio.
Did we do that?
Yeah,
We did.
I ended up picking the third one. I
All
ended
right.
up picking the third one, the very last one we did.
Okay.
That way we could
Okay.
use it every month instead of like having to redo it every time. I thought that was the best.
I love it.
Yeah,
Figured
yeah. So
everyone's gonna love that, I think.
yeah, I thought that was
Anyway,
funny.
right?
I thought that was funny. So yeah, dude. So let's get into it, dude. Transplanting, dude. Uh,
Yep.
you know,
The
obviously you got to
big
transplant
trans.
unless you're crazy. But the first question that people ask, a lot of the time when they're first starting out growing or whatever they're doing is when to transplant. Um, so Austin, you want to like kind of dive into that a little bit? We'll kind of go over that, like when, like what to look for, different variables and everything.
Yeah, well, I think the favorite variable, probably maybe the most favored, would be roots, root mass, root density, whatever amount of roots. I think that's probably the favored. There's also some people that go by the amount of time. They'll let it stay in rock wool or cup, whatever they have it in, for maybe a set amount of weeks, two
Right.
weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it might be. Um, and also, your how big is it? I guess, to me, the size of where it's at isn't necessarily as important as the roots, but also you need to bear in mind, the stem, because I've put some babies in the
Yeah,
ground that had a few, like, some pretty good roots, but the stem wasn't quite there yet, and the
right.
fan just,
This root
you
ball,
know,
if the root ball is
yeah,
underdeveloped, and you bring up a good point, like with that, saying that, like when you up pot, you're obviously, I agree with you on the root side. Like it really is a lot to do with, root development. If you're like commercial, sometimes it's 2 weeks and you go for it. You know what I mean? Like
yep,
really, you're not really going like what somebody at home or somebody that's like really craft is going to be doing. They're just go, go, go. But, I definitely
yep,
agree about the root side. And then with the root ball, that's when you cull that, right? I mean, like if you're seeing something that's got really good roots and even the plant looks all right, but it's wobbly, I mean, if it were me, I'd kill that. I would just throw it in the trash. You know what I mean? If it can't
not worth
stand
your
up on our
time.
own, but
Yeah,
hell yeah. No, I think
you got to
that's
know when it's not worth your time to mess with it. I guess in
exactly.
that situation too. But yeah, at home, maybe you keep that one.
Yeah, maybe
Maybe,
you keep
I
it. I
don't know.
mean,
Maybe.
you could plant it maybe a little
Yeah.
bit deeper in the dirt. I know some people don't like to do that because, if it's going to be an older plant, you could rot out that stalk a little bit. But if you water properly and you have a good environment, it's going to be very hard to do that, especially if
Mhm.
it's a good genetic, which is, obviously like one of the first things that you're going to want to look into when you're even just starting out, like growing, is genetic. Like make sure you have a good resilient genetic.
Yep, something that's durable. What durability? I think that's important.
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
Exactly. So what about like pot size? Like, are you just going, I guess it depends like what you're trying to do, but
yeah.
like
I
what do you think about that?
I think, like, for example, I like using I use 2-gallon pots. So I use like a 2-gallon pot, so that's not too big. So I go straight into the same pot it's gonna live in until I harvest.
Hmm.
That's where it goes. But like moms, obviously, you're not keeping a mom in a 2-gallon pot, or at
Yeah,
least
right.
probably
Not for
you're gonna
long.
have problems for, yeah, you're not
Yeah.
gonna keep it in there for long. Um, but if you're, gonna size up a pot, I don't know if I guess I've never put transplanted like directly into 10 gallons or directly in I've transplanted directly into 5-gallon before, but that was when I very
Hmm.
first started. Um, so I don't know. You might have a little more insight on because you worked with bigger pots, I
Yeah.
believe.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, definitely.
yeah,
Like you said, it depends. Like if you're at home and you're just getting into like you're going to go from your 4-inch rock wool to your final home, like it doesn't really make sense at home to, unless you're going to be like grown outdoor, to keep up potting
yeah,
into bigger
yeah.
pots. But I've done it to where I've gone from a 4-inch rock wool, or sorry, 2-inch rock wool, not 4-inch, 2-inch rock wool, to like 1 gallon, to then its final home of like a 10 or 15 gallon. They say to like step
Right.
up and everything, but it just depends on what you're trying to do. I've done it too, where I've gone in with a 2-inch and just put it in a 10 gallon just to see what happens. And I noticed that it's just not as like, weeks pass and it's not as strong as maybe its sister that got up potted into a 1 gallon first, just to really help develop
Right.
those roots and that root ball. Um,
Yeah.
so that's kind of like how I see it. I think it really just depends on what you're trying to do, and how fast you're like if you're talking commercial, you're looking at crop turns per year, right? And then you're looking at vegetative, like how many weeks are you going to be in veg, right? So if you're going to be
Yeah.
into veg for 6 weeks, like we were in veg for 6 weeks, and then we'd flip the flower. We would transplant from the rock wool into 1 gallon, and that would be in the 1 gallon for 3 weeks. And then we would transplant from the 1 gallon to the 10 gallon, and that would be 3 weeks. And then we
Okay.
would we would flip the flower. But if you're trying to do what Connected
Mhm.
did, we're going from uh, a 2-inch rock wool cube to a 3 liter, right? It was a 3 liter pot.
Yeah.
and then they're
Yep.
flipping. They're vegging for, we veg for 2 to 3 weeks, and then we put it in the flower room right there. So that you're cutting 3 weeks off each veg cycle, right? So you're saving, we were
Mm.
able to get 4.5 turns doing it that way, but now you're cutting that veg time in half. So now you're able to get a few, probably six, maybe seven. So if
Yep.
it,
You
if you're
get.
like if you're talking commercial, then you're a totally different ball game. Like, what do I want to transplant in? You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah, I like the yeah. Well, because I think the 3 liter it it worked, but like at the
Yeah.
end, like when it was harvested, like, and I feel like a little bit larger. Granted, it's not my operation, but I feel like a little bit larger would
Hmm.
have benefited those plants. But I think also we had some extra veg time that was happening.
Right.
A few other variables. So like in like a perfect scenario, that 3 liter probably was perfect, by the time it's harvested.
Right. Which kind of leads me into like,
Um, but it was definitely had no more room.
yeah, no, definitely. It
Right?
didn't. No, it didn't. And that kind of like was something I wanted to bring up here is it's all about your root health, right? If you don't have healthy roots, you're not gonna have a healthy plant.
Yeah.
There's no way about it, dude. You can be feeding it great, like everything can be perfect, but if the roots are unhealthy, let's say you're overwatering, whatever it might be, you're not gonna have a healthy plant. So we actually at DM we did
Yeah.
a side by side, and I'm gonna put up some pictures here in a second. We did a side by side of some blueberry muffin #4 from Humboldt Seed Company. One of the best strains that we've ever grown. Just that blueberry smell, just great. Anyways, that kind of going off topic. We vegged for the same amount of time, and what we did was we went from a 1 gallon to a 5 gallon. We did 24 plants in a 5 gallon, and then we went from a 1 gallon to a 10 gallon. We did
Uh-huh.
24 plants in a 10 gallon, right? So they vegged for 6 weeks total, and at the end of harvest, we noticed here, and let me pull this up real quick, just so I can show this. Uh,
All right.
and then let me share my screen with you too. That way you can see it.
Thank you.
Yeah, that way you're able to see it. So can you see this blueberry muffin?
So it's loading right now, but I'll be able to. Should be
Sweet,
able to.
sweet. All right. So, anyways,
You can go. You can continue.
hell yeah. So the hypothesis was bigger dirt means more roots, right? So big dirt means we're gonna have more roots, which means it's gonna be able to feed more, right? And it's gonna be at the end of the day, we were like, all right, if we have bigger dirt and we have more roots, we're gonna have bigger yield. So at the end of the crop cycle, we noticed that we were right, that they veg the same amount of time, yet and I'll show you right here, let's see, we averaged roughly 2.5 pounds per pot of wet weight on the 5 gallon pots and 4 pounds per pot wet weight on the 10 gallon pot. So we got about 9 to 12 pounds of dried
Uh-huh.
flour in the 5 gallon and 14.4 to 19.2 pounds in the 10 gallon. And that means
Mm.
like that we vegged the same amount of time, but the pot was bigger. Yeah, we spent a little bit more money on dirt, but at the end of the day, we got more yield. I mean, we
Yeah.
almost got like 4 or 5 pounds more. This image right here is of the five
Oh yeah.
gallon
What's
pot.
it?
And then this image right here is of the 10 gallon pot. And you can already see
Uh,
that it's just bigger. Like the buds themselves were bigger.
it's chunkier. Yeah, you got more chunk out of them.
Exactly. And we noticed that she
Nice.
got a
Okay,
little bit
that's
more
a pretty
like
cool.
trichome density. So if you look, can I zoom in on this? Nice. So if you look, you can see it's like pretty dense, but if you look at the
Yeah, it's in.
fan leaves, she's not like as frosty. But then you look over here, like see how she's
Uh,
just, I don't know, she just looks a little bit denser in terms of like
yeah,
trichome density. You know what I mean? Now I know the pictures
yeah,
are a little bit
and
different, so that might not be totally
yeah, it could
accurate,
be
but
that too. But
yeah. So
no,
anyways, I
I
just
see
kind of wanted to
exactly what you're
show
saying,
that.
though.
Just if you're thinking of if you're thinking of doing big dirt or not, kind of like Connected was, that's like when I came to Connected, I was like, okay, I get it. But at the same time, we've done this side by side. Like we did this test, you know what I mean? And we
Mhm.
came to the conclusion that we want to run 10 gallons. And the reason we had to is because they were like,
Yeah.
well, we don't want to spend that much money on dirt. And we're like, well, hold on. We'll show you that it's actually going to be worth it. Okay. And then we did, you know what I mean? So yeah,
I'm
so when
gonna
you're
have
thinking about,
to.
big pot or big dirt, it's about those roots, dude. It'll always be about those roots, dude. Healthy roots, you know what I mean?
I'm gonna have to maybe up my pot size a little bit.
Yeah, you could test it. I mean, that's the beauty of doing like stuff at
Yeah.
home or by yourself. You can do those side by sides and take your notes, you know what I mean? And that way you remember and you actually like
Mhm.
a lot of people think that, we're stoners and we're just out there chilling with the plants, smoking weed, and
Burnt
it's like,
out.
nah, dude. Yeah, exactly. No, it's like we're scientists, dude. Like we get in there and we think critically and we do stuff that a normal scientist would do.
I think that I think the reason I like the 2 gallon and don't use more is probably just because I do change the EC a lot. I like
Mm,
to I like to crop steer. And
yeah,
granted, you could still do that with 5 gallons, but the dry down's just the
it's
amount of
different,
time
right?
that you got to wait, So, and maybe I could do even a figure out how big of a pot I can get. So like, I only have to feed 1 week, and then a week later, I'm doing a different EC anyways, and it's ready.
Right.
Maybe that's something to consider if you're also thinking about using more soil.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's so many
but
different
no,
variables, right? Like you said, like crop steering and all that. So,
yeah. And also don't overpack the soil. We were going to mention that
yes, very
because
important.
you don't press your soil down. Just fill your bucket and give it some tappage.
Yeah, exactly. Nice and easy
Little
with your
love taps.
fingertip,
Yeah.
Just tap, tap,
When you
tap it
water it
in.
in, it'll pack itself. So
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I've
just
seen people
keep
where they
that in
literally
mind.
just they dig out a hole, put the plant in like from a 1 gallon, just cover it, and then that's it. Like that's it. Like they're
Yeah.
not like kind of moving it, they're not packing it all because like you said, when you water that in, it's going to naturally push that in. You're going to get all those air bubbles out. And that's like really important to get those air pockets out, or you're going to have a problem later on, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
And if you have like good aeration in your soil, you can even do like a really heavy water in just to make sure if you're not thinking it's going to be packed in enough, you could water the heck out of it if you have good
exactly.
aeration in your soil to
Exactly.
be good to go.
Yep. And if you can spend the money, you can oxygenate your water too. Add that
Yes.
extra O in that water.
There you go.
Yeah, and then you're really
I
talking.
have
Then you're really talking. But that's another day. And then another thing we wanted to mention too is when you up pot into your dirt, make sure your dirt is not dry as hell, or make sure you don't
yeah.
not water in, right? Because we've done that before where we were like, it's the end of the day. We had like up pot, something happened like to where we were like kind of, probably pissed off a little bit, like because we should have gotten done earlier. So we were like, fuck it, dude, let's up pot these up. The soil, like the dirt, like it looks wet enough. Like let's just leave. We came in the next morning and we knew better. We knew better, right? It was the end of the day. We were tired. We came in and the plants were falling out, dude. And these were moms too. These were supposed to be our moms. So we were like, yo, we need to water these right now. We're never doing that again. And we never did, and we knew better, but you learn from your mistakes, right? You learn from your laziness. Like it's gonna bite you in the butt, you know?
And that's a good lead into shock, because that was a good that was a good little shock they got.
Yeah. Yeah.
So things to prevent transplant shock, maybe, or stress, things that help.
Yeah.
Um,
You want to go into it or you want me to try to?
yeah, sure. I think the audio's starting to be weird again, like that. I don't know, 2 episodes ago, because I'm watching my little bars over here. It's going from red to green. So
Hmm.
if I cut you off or vice versa, that's why.
Nah, you're good.
Um, but yeah, transplant shock. That's a very good example of it. Granted, that's also because they weren't watered, but
Yeah.
you don't want to stress them out more than you have to when you're transplanting, just because that's, I mean, whether it's going from a clone into its home or if it's already had, a bigger home going into another bigger home, that's still a lot of energy that the plant is putting into just life. I mean,
Exactly.
it's
Like
got
you're setting it back
all
by
this
a
extra,
ton.
yes, you got all this extra, real estate that you got to go searching in and grow yourself. Um, Sounds kind of weird that a plant would get shocked or stressed because you're giving it more of what it wants, but it is a thing. It is definitely a stressful thing, and I think it's just because they're exerting a lot of energy into those roots.
Yeah. No,
And
I
things
agree.
like things you can do to help eliminate that stress and eliminate that shock. One of them, big one, is your environment. If you're going in, let's say you're going from clone to into your veg pots, and you're in a different room or a different tent, whatever your situation, you want those environments to be the same. I mean, they could be a little bit different. It's not going
Right.
to be fine. It's not going to hurt, but you want them to be very similar because that plant's already going through enough. So if you're going 10 degrees colder into the next room, it's not going to like that, or 15 degrees. It's not, or if your humidity's 50% and it's
We're
just
way off.
coming from
Yeah.
clone, yeah, it's gonna stress out.
Yeah.
So that's, a big one, environmental.
Yeah, exactly. No, I
Um,
mean to kind of go off of that, shoot, dude, what was I gonna say? Oh my God, dude, I'm blanking.
Yellow, green, blue, orange,
Yes, exactly. No,
purple.
not going into too big of differences in environment. That's why they say hardening off is super important, especially like when you're going outside. Like the outside environment is so harsh coming from like a clone or something that you've started in the spring that you're then going out into the summer, or the end of spring. They say to only do that for a day or even a few hours the first few days
Mhm.
and then bring it back. Because if you do that, it's like that environment is all that plant's ever known. So it's like me, if I were to go to Wyoming in the winter, I probably wouldn't like it too much. Like I'd probably freeze and I'd be like, I'm not used to this. Like I grew up in the South, I'm used to that humid
Yeah,
air and not like pretty mild winters, and now I'm going into this dry environment where it's super cold and snowing, and I probably like end up dying out there, if I got stuck on the side of the
you'll
road.
get like you could get a really bad case of TBS if you if you migrated too quickly.
Yeah, I think TBS
Um,
is serious, dude. That's a serious syndrome, dude. um
Serious stuff.
Well, yeah. So anyway, so that you think about it like that in terms of like the plant as well, and that goes with any plant, not just cannabis. Cannabis is a very resilient plant. One of the most resilient plants, I'd say, based on my
Yeah,
personal
bro.
experience. Uh, but yeah, no, exactly, like you said. Is there anything else you wanted to add to like the shock? Like obviously, like
Yeah.
doing it. Yeah,
Your nutrient that you're putting in when you water it in. You know, well, let me start with, myco. If you're going to use mycorrhizae, I don't know how to say it the right way. That's the best way I can
that's it.
say it. But
Mycorrhizae or
um,
mycorrhizae. I've heard it both ways.
mycorrhizae, rose, whatever.
That's why Mycos is just so much easier.
Mycos. So you take, your little bit of mycos and put it in your hole, or you can put it your plant and mix your myco in your water. But that's going to help your roots um, search. It's going to help them uptake nutrients a lot better. The nutrient delivery is going to be a little more efficient with it, but and it's also going to help your plant. It's going to, like, immune system. Think immune system of a plant. Myco is very good for the immune system of your plant.
Not
Um,
exactly.
and also the nutrient that you're watering in with. If you're watering in super hot, not every plant's going to like that. Some plants are going to handle it just fine, but maybe pick you don't want to go too low. Like, you don't want to do straight water, I don't think, personally, just because then you don't have anything in your soil unless your soil already has nutrients in it. In that
Right.
case, you're going to want to do a slurry test or
Yeah,
a
exactly.
soil
I mean,
test,
exactly.
so you know what your soil has. But if you're using, cocoa and perlite, for example, or rock wool, you know that there shouldn't be any nutrient in
Yeah, like
that.
zero.
If it's just straight
Like,
cocoa,
yeah,
So maybe like a 1.2 would be pretty low, but to me that's fair. But I mean, watering in at like a 2.6, um, like I said, some plants are going to be just fine. Other
yeah,
plants aren't going to like it, but also your dry down. You want to consider your dry down after your first water in. If you water in super high or hot, whatever you want to say, and then you dry down, you want to get a pretty good dry down after that, so your roots search even more.
exactly.
But that EC is going to start spiking. So maybe like a 1.5, 1.8, 2 maybe. I do a 2. I do 2 to a 2.2 when I water in, and usually it's fine.
Hell yeah. And to go off of that, like how you said like you want your dry down to be perfect, right? You want your dry down to be perfect because if you go too far in the other end, what's actually going to happen is those salts from what you fed in, that those salts that's left over into that pot, into that dirt is actually going to suck water out of your plant. It's going to reverse
Yeah.
I can't remember the name for it, but it's like pressure. It's like air pressure. Like if you're in a plane and you're really high and the window blew out, the air is going to be sucked out of the plane, right? So it's like
Yeah.
that, but with water. I can't remember what it's called. But if you dry down too much and you feed heavy salts, you're those salt the salt content on the outside of the plant is greater, so it's actually going to pull that water to where so it can be equal, right? To create that
Mhm.
equilibrium. Um, so that's just very important. Like you said, it is important to like dry it out, and that way your roots aren't just sitting in sop all the time because then they're going to be like, I don't have to work for this stretch at all. Um,
Exactly.
so I definitely like that. But like you said, yeah, I agree with everything you said. I think you hit it pretty on the head. I did want to ask you a question, and this kind of backs us up a little bit. But when you transplant, let's say you're transplanting from like a 1 gallon into a 5 gallon, whatever it is, do you like to break up the roots a little bit? Do you go straight in, or what do you prefer? And
Um,
then when you say it, I'll kind of go over what I prefer.
yeah, I wouldn't say I get like aggressive with it. Like some people get quite aggressive with it. I usually give it like a few squeezes just until like when I just kind of grab it a little bit.
Yeah.
It's not solid. I like to loosen it up. I don't break it up too much just because I feel like if I'm too rough with it, then I might cause more harm than good. But
Right. You don't want to
that's
grab
me
it out and just
personally.
like start banging it around and like
Beating
I've
it,
seen
yeah,
I've seen people like
backhanding
shake it up, dude, and
it.
like where it's just like a little bit of roots and a root ball left. And it's like,
Hang
I
it
mean,
from the
hey,
ceiling and start punching it, you know,
throw it up against the
whatever
wall. That'll bust it
whatever
up
you
real
gotta
good for
do.
you.
Yeah, it'll
Um,
work. It'll
but yeah,
work.
no, I've done either or. And to be honest with you, like after doing both, I prefer to be able to like break it up a little bit. I'll just do just the bottom though. Like I'll come in and I'll just kind of let's see, I'll just
Okay.
kind of like do this, right? You got to work those fingers a little bit and that thumb. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Um,
Uh-huh.
and then you just get that just a little bit kind of ripped up to get those out. But honestly, I can't tell you like that one way is better than the other because I've never done like a full test. Like what's and how would you even like quantify that anyways? Like it'd be depend like what you're
Yeah.
looking for, but it also could be like environmental restraint, like genetic factors or who even knows, the different kind
Yeah.
of variables. But I've seen it both ways. I've done it both ways, and I can't tell you that one's better than the other. So really, it's just whatever you prefer to do, whatever you feel more comfortable doing.
Yeah. Or don't do it at all. Just
Yeah, just put it right in
pull it
there. I
out,
mean, there's
push
no
back in
problem
another
with
one.
that
Yeah.
either. Now,
Might
if you
work
have a
too.
really tight, like we've had it to where we've had really tight 1 gallons that are just so like they're like root bound. It's like, all right, you might want to break
Like a
those up a
rock.
little bit. Yeah, like if you're root bound, you might want to break that up a little bit because he's already struggling to produce more roots
Mhm.
in that. So it's like,
That's
yeah,
true.
it might be wise to break that up a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I also
Exactly.
kind of want to talk about it real quick, like kind of back to what you were saying, like how you got to wait for the dry down and stuff. We've done it to where we've transplanted and we don't water for a week. You know what I mean? And that plant's just sitting there
Uh-huh.
and the plant it's using those it's absorbing those nutrients in the pot, but we can actually do something that's called a foliar feed to make the plant grow
Yeah.
faster. So I highly recommend foliar feeds. You can use anything that's kind of good in nitrogen, kelp, worm castings. Um, what did we use, dude? We
Crab and
used
shrimp
Yep,
meal.
yep, exactly. You just
Yeah,
dilute that
that's
down
a
in
good
water
one.
and spray your plants. And you can
Yep.
also mix those foliar feeds in with uh, insecticides or pesticides or fungicides, whatever you kind of want to do. Something not really harsh, I'd recommend, but that way you're feeding the plant via the leaves, and they'll absorb those nutrients because you're not like you're just sitting there in water, so it makes sense to if you're really trying to bump those plants up to really let them grow, get some foliar feed on them, dude. Spray that foliar
Yeah.
feed, dude. Spray
Why
it
not?
3 times a week, dude. 2 times a week,
Yeah.
whatever you want to do. But
If you can, if you can do it, you might as well do it. It's gonna help.
yep, compost,
Going to,
chitosan, and
and
amino
I
acids. Yes, sir.
is what?
Have you ever heard
And
of chitosan?
I've not.
So chitosan is like a seashell. We used it at Capricorn, and
Okay.
it's like a ground up seashell type thing. Smells like really funky, and it it's I used it. I like to use it, and I would have used it. I actually brought it up at Connected, but it basically there's studies shown in cucumbers and like zucchini and squash and stuff and potatoes that it can actually boost the immune system of the plant to prevent disease.
Really?
So we're talking like
And
viruses
is it
too,
so? Is it
viruses,
like a?
diseases.
It's messed. The things. The audio's doing it. Um, is it like a shell you said, or it's
It's
like
it's a
a?
it's a very refined seashell, I believe, or some kind of shell that
Okay.
they turn into
Okay.
powder. So they turn it into powder, and it's this
Interesting. All
orange
right.
like looking
Chitosan.
stuff. Yeah, chitosan. Chitosan, I believe. Um, So yeah, no, I really like that because dealing with like they even say like dealing with hop latent that it can help prevent the spread of that. Now I don't know like the legitimacy behind that because obviously we don't know that much about it, but
Right.
I like to think that any kind of viroid or virus or disease is kind of pushed back a little bit. Even if it has it, it can totally stop the spread from what I've read and from what I've researched. Um, so yeah, it's a cool little thing. I think it's expensive though, so like it's not like really viable. I
That's like
think for I don't know how expensive it is, honestly.
well, this is not what I was looking for. So maybe on a different one. I was looking at not Kite
But yeah, so
No,
let's
that's
see.
cool.
Is there anything else that you want to talk about, like for the transplanting side? I mean, I feel like we've definitely covered a lot. We have.
I didn't bring up nematodes. I know that was the big thing we started doing at Connected. I don't know if it was an SOP or if we just started doing it because we were unsure of Florida weather and all that.
Mm,
But I can say that I definitely adopted that because I like that a lot.
yeah,
The nematodes, when with the water in, you can put them with nutrients. It's fine. But one thing Nick did research while we were there is they like a moist environment.
yep,
So if you're putting,
moist
if
spot.
your soil's super dry, like you don't want it to be when you transplant, the nematodes won't like that environment as much, so it'll just probably take them a little bit longer um to start doing their thing. But definitely, yeah, the nematodes, it's pretty cool.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
easy to
definitely.
do. Just mix it in. You can't overdo it. So if you buy 50 million and you're only doing one plant, well, you might as well use it all. You're not going to hurt anything.
Yep. They say 1 to 2 million nematodes per gallon of water. And like you said, make sure your environment, your soil, your medium is wet. It's nice and moist because what's going to happen is when you water it in that dry, they're just gonna fall through, right? It's like when you have a hydrophobic surface that water is just kind of going through the bottom of the pot. That's exactly what the nematodes are going to do. They're just going to follow that water, and you just wasted. Nematodes are not cheap, so
No, they're not.
especially in bulk. Like they're not cheap. So no, that's definitely another thing to add to your IPM repertoire.
And SpongeBob can tell you all about nematodes if Google doesn't. Just remember,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
remember that. You
Meet,
watch
meet,
some
meet,
SpongeBob, they
meet.
got yeah.
Ay, ay, ay. Um,
Let's see.
cool.
I think
I
that
think I think
pretty
we're
much
good. We could
covers.
talk about efficiency, if we wanted, like just in terms of commercial grow operation. Like obviously you want to be as efficient as possible when it comes to transplanting. It's a very monotonous thing that you're doing. I've heard big companies like TrueLeaf or CureLeaf or places like that, they actually hire you to be a transplanter. So like every day
Huh.
for your entire
Just-
career, you will transplant, and you might sit in one spot. Now, I doubt that they would like be like, you're gonna sit here and put this in this pot. You're gonna fill up the dirt. Like it's probably like a switcheroo kind of thing. But I've
Right.
heard that they hire people specifically for transplanting, and that's crazy. But they get
It's
good. They
like
get good.
factory style, or like
Exactly.
what's it called?
Conveyor belt.
Not factory, but conveyor. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Conveyor belt
Exactly.
style, which by the way
So
didn't work for them.
no, no. So it's just important to be efficient. Get your people in your stations. It really is like, especially when you have. I mean, what we would have 1,500 to do in a day, um,
Yeah,
with
yeah.
3 people, and it's like, all right, dude, like we're gonna have a runner that grabs dirt, make sure everything's going good. You're gonna be filling pots. You're gonna be up pot, and you're gonna be moving them. It's super important to
Mhm.
just like I said, be efficient. And I actually want to show a cool video of just something that we did at Capricorn, out in their outdoor. I believe it's blueberry muffin number 4, and it was just me and one other guy. And this is why I'm saying it's super important to be efficient, because if it's just you guys and you guys got to water all this in, you got to grind. You know what I mean? So let me get this up real
Got a
quick,
lot to cover.
and then let me share my screen with you. That way you can see it.
And when you're transplanting at home, you're gonna overthink it. So don't overthink it because you got
Just
all the time in the world.
exactly, just do it. Just do it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, just throw it in there. It'll be fine, I promise.
So here's
But
this.
throw it in there nicely.
This was our morning. It was like, all right, you guys, you're gonna be up potting 750, and we had already filled up those pots, and we were like, all right, let's get it, dude. Let's see,
Uh-huh.
how do I go to the next video?
How many did you say that was?
750
Ooh,
from what I
yeah.
counted. Just for and dude, there's nothing like that Oregon sun, dude. Just like going out there, and dude, I was red like a crab at the end of the day, dude. Because I ended up taking my shirt off, and I was just like working like that.
Yeah,
But yeah,
that's
that's
really
it.
cool.
That's the
I'd
end of the
like to
day.
that's a lot of work.
And then this right here is 3 weeks later. So they
Nice.
booming,
Yeah,
dude, in that sun. But like you look at that,
yeah,
and you're
that's
like, damn,
nice.
dude, my hard work's like paying off. Like we busted ass to do this. And um, these right here are a little bit different. I think those were like a different day, but yeah, dude, that's cap for you, dude.
Dude,
But yeah, that's why
that
it's just
looks
super.
I'd love to do that. I would love to like go to an outdoor grow just because I've never been to one. I've seen them like driving through Oklahoma when I was
Mhm.
living there. Um, I've never been to one, and I think that'd be really cool.
You'd love it, dude. There's something about um just being outside, like growing weed, man. Just being in the plants, like listening to some Tom Petty, dude, or something.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
like some classic rock. I don't know, classic rock and like the sunshine and the weed, man. It's something else that it's not something that we can do out here down south, really. Obviously, like legality wise, but also just the weather's
Yeah.
different, and the plants like obviously would react a little bit different. So yeah, so I think we covered the transplant side pretty well. What do you
Yeah.
think?
I think
Anything
we
else you want
cut
to add?
I think we covered most of it. If we forgot something, I probably won't be surprised, but I'll be surprised.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, anyways, this segues into our next segment, which we're going to be doing once a month. It is this month in cannabis history. We're going to start to do this once a month. It's October. So I went back and we did some research and we found some pretty cool stuff. But anyways, yeah. So we have a special guest actually that's going to introduce us
Oh yeah.
into this this segment. So take it
Love
away.
it. He's great. Everybody's gonna love him.
All right, Austin, you're not going to be able to hear our guest, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's all right.
But actually, no, you'll hear him.
I met him the other day. It's fine.
No, you're going to hear him. You're going to hear him.
All right, I'll open up. All right, let's hear it. Yeah.
This month in cannabis history, the thing that they come on, guys.
All right, thanks, buddy. Thanks for introducing us, Joe. We really appreciate it. So this month in cannabis history, we found a cool little thing that I had no idea about, and it's called Operation Green Merchant, or known as Black Thursday to the Pioneers. And basically, what it is the DEA believed that High Times and Sinsemilla Tips, the magazine, were advertising for cannabis operations. And they were like, yo, let me go through these magazines and let's just come up with a plan of action to get these motherfuckers to talk. Like, let's see if they are selling to pot growers, right? So DEA agent Jim Stewart he plans this all out in 1987. And in 1989, October 26th, so this month, October, they do a sting basically for 46 different states at the same time. And they go in they or sorry, let me back up a little bit. In 1988, they go into these shops, these head shops, these nutrient places, just any kind of grow place that you would go in to get your nutrients, your lights, your bugs, maybe whatever it might be, and
all your
ask
necessary equipment.
Exactly. Ask these guys, hey, who are you guys selling this to, And some stupid fucking people were like, oh yeah, dude, we sell like to the grow shop or the grow farm down the street, or most of this stuff, like we have a lot of cannabis, blah 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 blah. So it took them a year to 2 years to gather all this information, but now I'll go into it. In 1989, October 26th, they had gathered enough information to be like, yo, this is like we're subpoenaing these guys. Like, they pulled records from UPS, USPS, and they busted these guys, dude. 46 states. Let me see, I got some facts right here. They books, merchandise, and records were taken from more than 3 dozen stores. 11 store owners were arrested, and several stores were padlocked, just shut down, dude. The total operation resulted in 441 arrests, 49,000 plants. That's a lot of fucking weed. And 1 ton of finished marijuana. That's a lot, dude. Just for like going in to being like, yo, we're gonna go bust these freaking head shops down, dude, or bust these, these shops down and shit. So at the end of the day, 356 indoor marijuana cultivation facilities were shut down, and over $9 million in, assets were seized.
9 million.
Yeah.
9 million in 1989 was a lot more than 9 million.
That's a lot of money, dude.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, it's crazy, dude, honestly. So I mean, what do you think about that, dude? Like, with that even happening, like it's such like a war on like that side. I mean, I guess if you think about it like from that perspective, it was pretty smart to like, they're trying to bust these growers, dude. But at the same time, it's like, damn, dude, I didn't even know about that.
Yeah, I definitely didn't know about it until you found it and sent it. But I don't know. I think that's fair play, I guess, but that's kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah.
You're attacking like head shops and stuff, and I guess that's also more of a biased point of view because I don't see it as a criminal enterprise. I see it as a way to make a living, or a way to medicate or something, but they didn't see it the same in 89.
Yeah,
I gotta
especially the
give props
DEA.
to the effort they put in. 46 states at the same time.
Yeah.
It's wild.
That's a pretty good sting, honestly.
Yeah, that's a big one.
That is a pretty.
And you don't really hear about stings anymore. I mean, I don't. Like,
Not really. I mean, I feel like
but
they've really laxed on it, you know? I mean, when Colorado
yeah,
first went
I
legal,
think,
there was still like for a year or two, and I'm not sure how it was in Oregon, but like in Colorado, they were still, it was crazy, dude, because you couldn't go to the bank, so these places had a ton of cash, and they,
oh, true.
the cops would raid, or the DEA, the FBI, whoever it was, CIA, doesn't matter, federal or state would raid, and they'd actually take that cash, dude. I mean, there's videos of cops pocketing that cash because they are
Oh
opening that
yeah,
safe, and and all
they didn't
that.
turn
So
all of that
you don't
in.
really see that anymore because I feel like it'd be more of like a public backlash. I mean, you got to think like there's already like half of the states are legalized, over half of the states are medical,
Hmm.
so it's like it might still happen. Like I do see stuff happen every now and then, but it's on the low, and it's usually actually is somebody doing something illegal,
Right.
going through the black market
Yeah,
and such. So
different world, but I think that I think the black market thing is pretty cool. Not gonna lie, I think you know that's pretty cool that there's still a black market for it when you can probably go to the state next door and buy it. So,
there'll
I
always be
think that's
a
it's
market for it,
stupid, but
dude.
it's funny.
Well,
Yeah,
until the man decides to not tax the ever living hell out of the grower, it will always be black
uh,
market,
yeah,
always.
yeah, yeah.
Even if they didn't tax the ever living
Hmm.
hell out of it, dude, and they were just like, and it was still illegal, like you're still gonna be able to go down the street to buy it from Joe Schmo. Um,
Yep,
but yeah,
yep,
so
exactly.
anyways, that kind of concludes our segment. We're gonna be doing like segments like that.
I like that segment.
Yeah, we'll do that segment once a month. We're trying to come up with ideas right now to kind of do segments every episode. It doesn't, maybe it's the same, maybe it's different every week, whatever it is. Um,
Next week we're doing gymnastics. Nick's gonna show you how we can do the splits,
yep,
and
yep. And
that's
Austin's
what we're
gonna show
gonna
you
do
how
next
he can
week.
do
Yeah.
a backflip without jumping, without jumping.
Without, yeah, yeah, that's right.
So stay tuned for that. But yeah, anyway, so that kind of goes into our next part of the show. I gotta take the sweatshirt off, dude. It's getting a little warm. And that is the
Yeah.
vegetative side. The vegetative side of the grow.
I love your bandana, by the way, before we begin.
Thanks, dude. Yeah, so this
Beautiful.
actually, if you can see, let me see. It says mom on there. So my mom actually got me this bandana, like, I don't know, probably 13 years ago. Um,
Show him your barbed wire tat. Show him your barbed wire tat.
yeah, dude, it's right there. Yeah, yeah, it's on my butt cheeks actually. I don't think I could show that on
Oh,
YouTube.
oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't
That's
think
all
I
right.
could
You can
show that
show me
on
later.
YouTube. So yeah, that's fine. Um,
I'll be over for the birthday, so you can show me then.
yeah, exactly. We'll be over on the weekend, so we're good. We're chilling. We're chilling. You can see it then. Um, But yeah, so we'll get into the veg side now, and the first thing we want to talk about, and Austin already kind of brought it up, was the environmentals. Like what are you looking at in terms of environmental like factors in veg? Let's say it's been vegging for a few weeks, like roots are developed. You know what I mean? Like she's not stressed anymore from the clones and the transplant. What is your ideal range there?
Um, Range, would say not lower than 75 and probably not higher than 80. I like a
Degrees?
78. I like 78. Yeah.
Yeah,
But I mean, the plant will still, it'll still grow at 75. It'll still grow at 78. It'll still grow at 85. It's just trying to figure out what temperature, what climate works best
exactly.
for you and your, tent or shed or whatever you have.
Yeah,
But for me, it's 78, 78 and about 70% humid. I don't remember the exact percent humidity, but VPD chart, we talked about that
yeah,
couple
exactly.
episodes or last episode. I don't remember. VPD chart. If you like 78 degrees, find your VPD chart
Yep.
and get the humidity off of that. And keep in mind, there's different VPD recommendations for each stage. Your veg, your early flower, mid flower, late flower. There's a different stage, so you don't want to use a late flower humidity when you're in early veg
Yeah,
um,
exactly.
with the same temperature. Yeah.
Yeah, and you don't want to use like a flower humidity for a late veg. Like we've done that before, where we
Yeah.
would move
Yeah.
into,
Yeah.
they
Dry.
were balling at 70% humidity, and then they're going into 40% humidity, and we're like, why do they not look good right
Locked
now?
up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like just curled down. You're like, oh, they're overwatered. Like, no, they're just the humidity is like super,
Yeah.
super low, so the stomata's closed, and they're pissed. They're not happy. So yeah, I mean, we kind of went over that a bunch already. I don't think we
Mhm.
touched too much onto that. I do want to touch on some IPM practices in veg. This is where you're going to get
Yes,
most of
please do.
your sprays in if you're spraying in a commercial environment. If you're at home, again, I would not recommend spraying. Um, I would just make sure your environment's dialed in, make sure you have really good airflow, and your tent is sealed, either from a bedroom or it's sealed up, whatever that may be. um, I like to spray one pesticide and one fungicide a week. Give depending on what you're spraying, you might be able to mix them, but I don't like to mix them just because some of that stuff is a little bit more harsh on the plants depending on what you're spraying. I'm not going to go into like details of what to spray. That's going to be for another episode. At some point, we're going to do an actual like IPM episode, and I can go over all of that. Um, but yeah, so spraying, once or twice a week, one pesticide, one fungicide, and then I like to deploy bugs as well. Um, One bug that I really liked was a soil predator called Stratiolaelaps, and something that I've dealt with before was thrips. And thrips are a pain in the ass. They are not detrimental to your plant necessarily. They do say that they can cover viruses or transmit viruses, and like tomatoes and stuff. Tomato wilt virus and stuff could be transmitted, but there's not enough evidence to suggest that that can happen in cannabis, right? So, anyways, so Stratiolaelaps is like a really good predator for thrips because thrips, the larva actually lives in the soil, and the adults lay their eggs within the cell or within the stem, the stalk wall. So if you spray, you're not really combating the eggs because they're in the stalk, right? So one way to combat them is to get some Stratiolaelaps. They're this little, bug, and great for thrip larvae, root aphids, or fungus gnats. Anything that's going to live in your soil, and all three of those do. So they're really good. They're a little bit more expensive, but if you're going the biological route, definitely recommend those. And then another bug, just for like a general predator, is Aureus insidiosus, otherwise
Oh, yeah.
known as the Hyoposis miles or something like that. And those are good for thrips, aphids,
The
mites.
pirate bug.
Yep, the minute pirate
Don't they
bug.
call him pirate bug?
Yep,
Yeah,
exactly.
there you
Because
go.
I don't know why they call it. Maybe because it looks like a pirate.
It's got that one little. I think it's because it's got that one little white dot on its back. But
Hmm.
maybe that's why. But pirates wear a black thing, not a white thing. I don't know.
Who
But
knows? But yeah, or any soft body insect, that you're going for there. And like I said, we'll go over like on the IPM episode, we'll go over all this into way more
yeah,
detail. Something you could do at home, which is cool if you did want to spray something, is this is good for soft body insects and just kind of a general thing is you can actually use cayenne pepper and dilute it with water, and you mix it up into like a spray bottle, and it's not going to affect your plant really, but it will piss off those smaller little bugs. I mean, that's spicy, dude. Imagine getting that in your eyes and your mouth and shit in your
I see.
butthole, dude, or something like that. So, it
Getting
might burn.
sprayed with that. Imagine if there was like a giant that came and just sprayed
I
you with a bottle of
Yeah,
cayenne pepper, dude.
yeah, I'd say it's probably a little unenjoyable. Um, so yeah,
Probably
another thing you can do at home
potato
is,
sauce.
yes, potato slices. If you have root aphids or fungus
Potato
gnats
sauce.
and you're trying to draw them out, or let's say you're scouting and you're like, okay, I thought I saw something fly around. I thought I saw something. Slice you up just a raw potato, thin slice, maybe like a quarter inch, half inch thick, and put a few of those on the top of your soil. And what that is going to do is going to draw those bugs out into, there you go, perfect. That's it. He's got the tape measure. That's going to draw those out into that. And I don't know the exact reasoning behind that. Um, but that right there is a good scouting technique. And yeah, so yeah, I think that's kind of it on the
Well,
IPM side.
that'll give us something to research. It'll give us
Exactly.
something to research for the IPM episode, the potato.
Exactly. Yeah, that's gonna
We'll have
be
to
that's gonna be
we'll
an
have to
insane
note that.
episode, I think. That's gonna be one of those ones that's like
Yeah.
super we gotta make sure we know what we're talking about on that one. Which we do, but let's we'll be good. Um how do you like to top? When do you like to top in veg?
Hmm. Uh, hmm, I kind of eyeball it, honestly. Like when I have at least 7 nodes, because I
Hmm.
like to top at 6.
Yeah.
But like I've let them grow to hit like 9 nodes and then topped it down to 6. But usually, as soon as I have that seventh node, I'll let it go a little bit longer, so it's
Hmm.
not like just a little baby node, and
Yeah.
then I'll top it.
Hell yeah.
Um,
Do you just go in there and you pinch it
yes.
off? Do you use scissors or what do you like to do? I mean, I've done it both
Um,
ways.
so like when I have sometimes it kind of the plum work when it's a little softer, like the tissue of the stem's a little bit softer, I'll just pinch it.
Hmm.
But if it's a little bit thicker, more pronounced, it's starting to age a little bit maybe, then
Yeah.
I'll use
A little
a
more
scissor
woody.
just so I get a clean cut and so I don't squish it real bad.
Yeah.
I'm gonna grab my charger quick because I didn't grab that when we started, so I'll be back.
I'll go
But
ahead.
if you want to keep
I'll just sit.
going,
Yeah, I'll just
that's
sit here in
totally cool.
silence awkwardly.
Yeah, sit in silence. Nobody move.
Nah, but yeah, like Austin said, he likes to tip, is what I like to call it, with his finger. Um, and what that is I mean, you're just using your. Let me see. Let me switch this over. You're just coming in and you're going down. Like he said, you want that softer tissue. If you don't have that softer tissue and you try to do it on like a lower branch, dude, oh my gosh, you're gonna mess that up. So always use scissors. And when you tip, you still want it to be a clean like pinch. Like you don't want to rip it and then have like some strains of stem just sitting there because it's like an open wound to them. It's like if you had a hangnail and you just ripped it off, like that's gonna hurt. But if you can kind of get that off, or if you get like some nail clippers, you can kind of do it that way. Austin's back. I was able to talk through it. That's good.
Back.
Um, but yeah, so I agree with him. I mean, if I'm doing commercial, I'm going as fast as I can. Unfortunately, so I'm doing the tipping method unless I'll have a pair of scissors on me, and like he said, if it's a little bit lower, let's say that plant's grown a little bit more, I'm gonna go in there with scissors and bring it down. Excuse me. Um, because I'm not trying to rip that off. Or I've done that before where I've actually done it to where I tried to do it and rip it and pull, and I pulled the whole plant out, like from just transplanting, like where there's roots dangling and dirt, and I knock over the pot, and I'm like, well, shit. So I put, I
That's
transplanted
not good.
again, and then I used the scissors, and I'm like, well, shit, dude, I was going way too quick. I was going way too fast, and that's what happens. But if I'm at home, I'm
That
honestly, if I'm at
happens.
home,
Yeah, shit
I'm
happens.
babying my plant, dude. I'm topping it with scissors, like with the sharpest scissors I can find, and I'll do like 5 to 7, depending on what I'm doing. Um, if you're doing a top for a mom, it's actually a little bit of a different story, right? Like you might want to go lower. You might want to make it bushier. It depends on what strain it is, right? If you have like a really tall genetic, we had this slurricane at Capricorn that would just grow like so tall, dude. She wouldn't bush out at all. It was ridiculous. So you'd bring her down maybe just a little bit more to try to get that height down, right? Because a good mom is not gonna want to be super tall, dude. Like you're gonna be getting on ladders. Like I've seen 15, 16 foot moms before, and the cloners are like, "Are you fucking serious? Like, did you seriously let this get this tall? Now I have to get a 6 foot ladder
Yeah.
out and cut, 100 cuts off of this plant."
Yeah.
Um, so
They look beautiful, but it's a pain. But it's a pain in the butt, and it's just too much mass. And then the inside just gets nasty. All that middle growth just
yeah,
is a waste. It's just waste. So
yep.
definitely keeping the. Oh, we're gonna talk about moms. We're gonna have time.
We'll
Well,
talk.
maybe,
Yeah,
but
yeah. No, we will.
keeping
We'll talk
those
about them.
clean.
Exactly. No, our next
And
topic.
also
No, you go ahead. You go ahead.
when you also when I top, I also like to make sure it's like the day after I water. So I'll water, and then like if I decide I'm going to top, whenever it needs to be watered, and then the next day is when I top it, just because it's going to stress them out a little bit, but
Yep.
also going to induce a lot of growth. So it's going to want to drink it's going to drink a lot. Like after you top, you will probably notice that your plant drank more than it usually does. So that's kind of neat. Actually, it
Yeah.
was dark for a second.
Yeah, exactly. No, exactly. Watering, you're kind of relieving some stress there, in a way. She just ate. She's full of water. She's full. She's not hungry, and you're doing something very stressful to her topping. So you are alleviating some stress there. The less stress that you give the plant, the better. So,
Yeah.
yeah, we are.
A little bit of stress is good. A little bit of stress is good. But
Yeah,
you can
low
you can
stress
overstress
training.
them for sure.
Low stress training. You want to talk about low
Yeah.
stress training in veg, or do you want to save that for the flower side?
Um, say flour, because I mean, I don't feel like a lot of people probably do stress training in veg. You know,
It
let's talk
depends.
about
Like it.
it. Some people do. Some
Some
people do
people do.
like to
Yeah,
induce a little more stress in veg.
yeah.
I maybe just personally don't, but there's people out there
I
that do. So
exactly. Yeah,
we can
I've done
talk
it.
about it.
I've
Let's
done it
talk
at
about it.
home. So I've only really like low stress trained. You know, with the scrog method, right? Like with some trellis. When they're in,
Hmm.
if you can get that on there when they're still in veg, when they're still flexible, like you said, and they're not like woody and hard. But at home, I specifically actually like to do it at home more so to fill out my tent, right? So if I'm only having 4 plants in there, what I would do
Yeah.
is I would take a drill and I would go through my pot or whatever I could use to poke holes, and I would do wherever a main branch came off, I poke a hole. Then I would go through and tie some trellis wire and then loop it around the main branch, and pull it down just a little bit. And then every day or every other day, I would tighten it just to get it to where I like, it would start here and then I would go and would just go,
Hmm.
go, go, go until I had it. And some people will go
Where you
as
want it.
hard as like manifolding. Have you ever seen that? Like a manifold?
Like when it splits?
It's like a pure 90
Or
degree.
what do you mean?
Like so
Oh,
it'll be a
see,
pure 90-degree angle to where they bring it down so hard and then all of these nodes are just boop 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 like shooting up.
uh-huh.
And I think I have seen it to where they
I'm
split. I
maybe
don't know
I'm
if that's like what happens or if
Yeah.
that's how you do it for it to be like that. I mean, I think it'd be a cool exercise or experiment, but it's not like practical because imagine the amount of veg time that you would need to,
Mhm.
do something like that, right? Even at home, I'm on a schedule. I'm on a
Grill it.
time schedule. I'm not, I still want to grow
Wanna
weed
try
in
it
a
out.
reasonable time.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Don't wanna wait 2 years for it.
yeah, exactly, exactly. Um, so yeah, I mean, that's a little bit about low stress training. It's you either want to do it or you don't. You could use trellis wires. I know a buddy of ours uses that was a cat. I know a buddy of ours uses buddy tie down or something. I can't remember what it's called. Do you know what he's talking about?
Um, I know what you're talking about, but I don't remember the name,
It's like
and he'll
little yellow
probably
clips
text us
that you
shortly. Yeah, it's like a little branch clip looking thing,
yeah.
and I don't know if you slide it down as you want
I
it
think
to
you like
spread more, if you just push it
I think it's just
down,
a
or
one
how
and
they
done
work
thing.
exactly,
I think like you just do it and the
or if you
angle
just
is
put it
like
on.
where it is, you know what I mean? And then it's gonna kind of go out
Okay.
and work. Um, which I
Well,
mean I think it's
I'm sure
cool.
we'll find out soon.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I talked to him about him, and he seems like he kind of had a love-hate relationship with it. He kind of liked it, but he was kind of sounded like maybe it was a pain in the butt as
Yeah.
well.
And you
And
can
then
only
that's what
do
it was
so
gonna say.
much. Like
But
if it's one angle and you can't actually keep moving it down and down, then it's like that's the angle that you're at. That's as big as it's gonna or as wide as she's gonna get, or he. Um,
mhm.
and it's kind of like, well, I'd rather have more
Yeah,
control
I
over it.
guess you meant
If you're growing a stud,
yes.
if you're growing a fucking stud. So do you want, I mean, we kind of touched base on it a little bit, with the transplant EC and pH. Do you want to go over it in pre-veg? Like, what do
Mhm.
you like to do? What do you look for? I mean, and stuff like that, you know?
Yeah, and pre-veg, that's when I mean, you could say start your crop steering, but you're more or less ramping it up to start your crop steering, the way I do it. But, maybe you're watering in at a 1.8, and sometimes that's all someone uses. They might run 1.8 the whole, entirety of their run, but I like to start at a 1.8 to 2.2. I kind of change it every time just because I'm trying to remember what I
Hmm.
started at, but I always end up forgetting because I never write it down. But let's say you're starting at a 1.8 and your like target is 2.4 before flower, and you're gonna like 1.8, you're gonna dry down, and when you water again, you'll do like a 2, and then you'll 2.2, and then a 2.4. That's just it's easier on the plant to
Hmm.
to
To kind
slowly
of,
increase it. It just
right.
allows that plant to adjust with more feed. You can
Hmm.
also, I've done it. You can go from a 1.8 to a 2.4. I can't say that I like noticed like a visual difference. Like I didn't see any stress. I didn't feel that it induced any stress to the plant making that jump. But
Hmm.
then again, that could be a genetic as well. If you have a strong genetic that can handle that type of EC jump or shift, whatever, then probably not going to notice a change. But you also want to bear in mind pH, because I feel that I've seen more issues with pH um, deficiency or pH issues than I have EC overfeeding or underfeeding. I feel that if your pH is way off, you're going to notice that a lot quicker because there's a big difference. It doesn't really seem like it, but there's a big difference from like a 5.6 to a.
Just keep talking. If you can hear me, just keep talking. My shit got messed up, so just keep on going on, bud.
But as you can see, like the 5.5 end has more iron,
Yeah.
more manganese, um, and less nitrogen, less potassium, less sulfur, less calcium. And then, over at the 7.0 end, you got more nitrogen, more phosphorus, more potassium. So it's just something that you kind of have to work in with the feed you're using. If you're using a super salty feed, your pH is maybe going to be affected a little bit more. If you're using like an organic feed, your pH is a lot of times I've seen a lot higher than it wants. And that is in order for the plant to uptake the nutrients better. Because if you're using a 5.5 pH in the nutrient line you're using calls for like a 6.2 to 6.4, then your plant is not uptaking the nutrients as well from that, company. Where if you use a 6.2, 6.4, that's what they recommend, that's what they've tested it at. They know that plant is going to uptake the nutrient better at that pH. So yeah, that's kind of my rant on pH and EC.
I appreciate that. I had some technical
I
difficulties. My headphones just started to die on me, so they were going like the audio was coming in right, left, right, and it was tripping me out. And I was like, "What the fuck's happening, dude?" Like, I don't think there's any drugs in my drink, but
It's been a night. It's been a night. I forgot a charger. Your headphones are going out.
dude, dude, yeah, it went off hard. I was like, "Oh my goodness." But yeah, no, I appreciate you sticking through it and kind of getting through it. How's my microphone sound? Does it sound pretty good still?
You're good. You're good. You might be a little bit louder now, but I think you're probably all right.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Getting this out a little bit.
I forgot to mention another thing. Um, I like in veg. Maybe you should go over this because it's kind of more up your alley, with the rooting enhancers and
Hmm.
maybe using silica, kelp, stuff like that. That could be.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, silica is a great additive that we've used at Connected via Power Psi or at Capricorn with raw silica, and that is going to help build the structure of the plant and make that bitch just strong, dude. Like super strong. I mean, you think about it, that's what it's gonna do. Um, and one thing that we've noticed too when you run silica is when you're taking your cuts, it's actually going to be a thicker cut, and you're not going to have a big gaping hole in there. And to Austin's point, water that before, like a day before or a few hours before, and you're going to notice it really help that plant. One thing to keep in mind, at least when you're doing raw silica, is to lower your pH pretty low before you dump that in there. And what I would like to do is get a hot bucket of water, 5 gallon bucket, and mix it in there first, and then mix it into your tank. Because what's going to happen is it's going to raise your pH dramatically. So if you're not at like a 3.5 to a 4.0 on the pH, it's going to, like, let's say you're at 6, it's going to bring it to a 10. And what happens is that silica binds with the water molecules and creates like these little, like these rocks basically. And at that point, you're done. Like, you have to waste your entire tank. It's over.
You're
Like, get rid of it. I've done it to where let's say I'm mixing a big tank and I had only like 4 gallons of hot water and I put 2 bags, so an extra, times two. I've actually seen it happen to where I would pick it up and these rocks were like so dense and so hard. It didn't matter if I added more water or anything. Like, it's binded to that water now, and it's a rock. So, and it's not gonna dilute
the
properly.
rock.
Now a thing with the Power
And for
Psi,
some reason, Power SI, yeah.
yeah,
That
Power
one's
Si.
Power SI for whatever reason. Go ahead.
No,
Go
you're
ahead,
good.
Hank.
Yeah, you're good. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's off a little bit. Yeah, so the Power SI, like, it actually brought it down a little bit because it's neutral. So they've worked out their formula, which I thought was really cool, that it didn't do
Mm.
what I thought it was going to do at the beginning. And it actually worked out really well. Like, it would drop it just a little bit. We would put our pH at, like, what we would want. It would drop it a little bit. We're good to go. The only problem is you're paying a premium for that privilege. That's the thing, which is cool, if you got the money. Now, there are other alternatives out there that are cheaper that I've not used or anything like that. But yeah, you could,
Mm.
use that. So I think it's important to consider silica. Now, you don't want to use it in flour. That's one of the biggest things. You do not want to use it in flour because I believe it messes with like nutrient uptake later in flour, and you will see, your plants will get fucked up, dude. Like, it's not like gonna make
They-
anything bad happen, like on the testing side, but you're not going to be able to uptake nutrient properly, like after, I believe it's like week 2 or 3 of flower, because once those flower hormones switch in and like the plant's required to have different, more phosphorus and more potassium than nitrogen, it's actually going to mess with the uptake of that, I believe. So just keep that in mind if you do want to use like silica.
The Power SI does have a bloom product.
Okay.
I don't know what's different in it. I have a bottle of it, but I won't go grab that right now because that'll take too much time. But they do have a bloom product, and I don't know what they've changed or what they, adjust in
Mm-hmm.
it. Um, but I guess I can't say that I've seen like a noticeable difference. Um, but I've also only used it twice, so I didn't have like a side by
Yeah.
side comparison.
Yeah.
Um,
That's
yeah,
what you need.
I don't know about like raw silica. Probably don't want to use raw silica. And
Not at home. It's really like for
yeah,
bulk. I mean, like, if you're trying to save some money, you want to do it the bulk way, and you're gonna save a ton of money doing it that way. I mean, imagine buying a 55-gallon drum of Power SI. Like, that's like in the tens of thousands of dollars, I imagine. So,
there you go.
so,
Yeah, you'd be spending a lot of money.
so hot take, dude. To defol or to not defol?
Hot
Defoliation
take.
versus no defoliation. Go.
Default.
You're wrong. I'm
Defoliation.
just
You're
kidding.
wrong.
Sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Go back to start. How's Monopoly work if you don't make it past whatever?
Go to jail.
Anyhow, default. I think it's important to keep that airflow. Not too much. You can defoliate too much. Um, but it's good to big fan leaves. If the plant's a good size, big fan leaves can come off. Don't go all the way up. I don't go all the way up. I go about halfway. Halfway sometimes, depending on how bushy the plant is, I'll go a little bit higher than halfway. And I'm just picking those big leaves off just
Mm-hmm.
so that airflow can get in there a lot better. Light penetration, you get more light penetration. And also you're inducing growth a little bit. Not too much, but when you pull those leaves off,
Yeah, a little
the
spacing.
plant wants to grow a little bit more. It tickles them a little bit. Yeah, give them a little
Gotta give them a
tickle.
little tickle. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I've always been a big
Yes, and
like
also, um,
I've always been a big proponent of defoliation. Kind of along the same lines as like how you've said, you're going to get good airflow, you're going to get better light penetration, but there is a point that you can go too far, right? Like you got to remember
mhm,
that your leaves are your solar plant panels for your plant. So if you take too many of those off,
yeah,
your plant's not photosynthesizing anymore, right? Um, but I always get rid of the older ones. You can tell they're just older, maybe from the clones, how they're cut off on the main stalk, and especially
yeah,
in veg, like that's about all I'll do. Like you said, I'll go about halfway. I might go to where I topped, and then that's it. You're good.
yes. I mean, oh, and you're also gonna help reduce your chances of getting like mildew, mold, things like that. Because when you start getting too much, you picture like a big bushy plant
Mm-hmm.
that's only 2 foot tall, and you haven't touched it, but you can't see the middle of it. There's a good chance that if you open it up and look in there, you're gonna have, dead or wilted leaves hanging there, or yellow leaves, or
Yep,
nasty
light
branches.
locked or
That's a little bit
not getting
older
good.
into veg, but yeah, yes.
Yeah, our audio is so off, dude.
You can take it away. Go ahead, go ahead, man.
But yeah, yeah. So yeah, like you said, like light lock, airlock. I mean, you're gonna have is like the plant will do some weird shit if you don't defoliate or get in there and gut the plant out a little bit, especially like a mom, because if it's not getting any light, it's like why am I providing it nutrients? It's gonna start to die off, and it's just gonna be this nasty like, and we've seen it before. Um, we've seen it plenty of times, and it's unfortunate when it happens. Sometimes you have the manpower. Sometimes people just don't know what they're doing, or what have you. It doesn't really matter, still. So, no, yeah, definitely. I agree. And that kind of like could segue into the mother side when we get to it. One thing I do want to add about defol is you don't really, like for an auto, let's say you're growing an autoflower or known as ruderalis, you're not going to. You're not going to defoliate. You're not going to top. You're not going to transplant. If you have an autoflower, you pop that seed and you just let her grow, dude. I mean, I'm sure you could like pull some, dead lower leaves, just let her go, dude. That's just something I wanted to throw in there, right? Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, dead air. I'm waiting on you.
Mothers, mothers. So you vegged, you're getting ready to throw some into flour, but you're not throwing all of those in. You're going to keep a few of those because you're going to want to cycle out your old moms. If you keep your old moms or keep a mom in general too long, it uh it just gets worse. The quality of it just goes down and down and down and down. You hear talk about like genetic drift and stuff, which I guess there's not really evidence that it's not true, but you can definitely tell that the quality of your cuts does decline if you use the same mother plant over and over and over and over, and the health of that plant just gets weaker and weaker every time.
Right.
So you're keeping a few of those plants. Maybe you're keeping three, whatever you might be keeping. But what are things you want to do with that plant if you're keeping it as a mother? Are you staking it? Are you, staking's probably from what I've seen, like what you implemented, I saw a really good benefit to staking. It opened it up a lot more. It allowed more light penetration, so I think staking is a plus with
Mm-hmm.
mothers for
Definitely.
sure. And I think you should talk about this one because you taught me how to do it, but shaping. I think shaping is also another very important factor of it, especially a young mom.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I can take that away. After you get done with your topping and like she's kind of, naturally kind of gone out, we would do this staking. And I actually learned this from Capricorn, is where you would go either into your pot on the very outside, or you would put your stakes on the outside of the pot and use this tape gun to kind of support these main branches, or maybe you would pull them in, or what have you. And what you're looking for is an inverted Christmas tree, right? So if you take your Christmas tree, let's see if I can do this. I can't do it with my hands, unfortunately. You look at your Christmas tree, right? Or you look at the pine tree.
Christmas
Yeah,
tree.
there you go. And then you take that and you flip it, right? You invert it. This is what you want your cannabis plant to look like, right? An inverted Christmas tree. So if you have a strain that's, I like that. If you have a strain that's super tall, it's going to grow way more vertical. You're going to want to stake those branches out and just really shape it. And it's important because let's say you have this mom for 3 to 4 months, right? This isn't like a one cut and done. Like you're taking cuts. You're taking cuts weeks and weeks. And you want this mom to be as healthy as possible. So shaping it is, in my opinion, very important early on, and to maintain that shape, to maintain to adjust your stakes, to adjust your tape gun selection of your main branches. You might have a main branch that you take cuts off, and you're like, well, I'm getting rid of it. You know, one thing that I like to do was called V
Yeah.
shaping, and again, most of my knowledge comes from Capricorn. To where if a branch, like same thing, inverted Christmas tree V, but if a branch is going outside of that V from your pot, even if it's a main branch, cut it out, dude. Get it out of here, dude. It's taking way too much energy to
Yeah.
push nutrients and stuff up to there, to that branch. It makes zero sense to have it. Get rid of it. And then, like Austin said,
Yeah.
defoliating, internal cleaning of your mom to make sure that you have good airflow, really thick cuts at the end of the day. The more branches you have on there, the more nutrient the roots have to push up to the plant, uh, and you're not getting those super thick cuts that you're gonna want to see. You know, so um, so yeah, I mean, it's hard to really like go into super detail without like actually showing. I wish we were able to like, have a video where we could show like on air, dude. Like maybe one of these days when, if you have your grow in Missouri, we can go and actually do like a podcast or like an episode like
Yeah.
at the farm. I wish we had that luxury. Unfortunately we don't. Um,
Oh yeah, for sure.
but yeah, so I mean, it's obviously like you said, and like I
One
said, it's
thing
very important.
that I wanted to bring up once the
Go ahead.
audio catches up, it'll take a second.
Yep, you go
I
ahead.
think the audio is caught up now. One thing I wanted to bring up, and you showed me this, um, was the when you're cutting. So you were talking about those outside branches, and you have one hang, and you're cutting that one off, right? But going even further up, let's say you're bringing this plant down. So that, one thing you showed me with those outside branches is to find the node that's going inward.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you're gonna want to top that next branch. And the reason being was because then that plant is naturally gonna keep growing straight or more in
Yep.
instead of all those, those those small secondaries going out, and it's a mess. It's a pain in the butt. They tangle into each other. So on those outside branches, I even started doing it on the inside branches too. If the node was going in, that's where I was trying to top at most of the
Nice.
time.
Yeah, exactly. Because your gravity's working against you. So if you have like a branch that's
Yeah.
really going out, and you have a node right here that's kind of pointing up already, you cut that off, you de-leaf it, whatever. It's kind of bouncing back now because you took all that weight off,
Mm,
and now
bring
she's gonna have
itself.
an easier time to grow straight. Which is what you want, like in a mom. You don't want moms going
Yeah.
all over the place, left and right and stuff. So
No,
Yeah, one of these
that's a
days we can
mess.
do
That's
a
a
review
disaster. You don't
episode.
want to deal with it.
But
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah.
yeah,
But yeah,
environmentals the same.
um,
Are environmentals for the mom plants are the same, right? Veg. I mean, when you're in pre-veg and you're in your mom, I mean, you want to keep them the same because, going from your clone, which is coming from your mom, going into the pre-veg room, which is then either becoming a mom or going into flower. So you're really trying to keep those the same, right?
yes. Um, Same environment, I believe, for moms. I mean, same environment as your veg. Only thing you might do different is maybe you increase your airflow because you're gonna have more biomass with your moms, and also you're maybe gonna increase your lights. I'd recommend increasing your lights just because you have more plant. You're gonna want more light to keep it a-okay.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that about covers it. Do you have anything else? And if not, do you happen to have a random for today?
No, I don't have a random for today. Well, actually, I might. Let me think about it for a second. We might have a random. That's another thing we're trying to do. Might have a random. One thing we didn't
Okay.
touch is CO2. When you talk about CO2 for your veg,
Oh,
what
it's
is
one
your
of the main
ideal? I
components. I
mean,
forgot
I'm
about her.
1200 to 1400 ppm. Really, you're not gonna get any more value out of anything higher than that. If it's lower, like whatever, if that's all you can do, but anything higher than
Mm,
1400 ppm, you know, not really gonna do much for you.
yeah, I agree with that. 1200 to 14, especially if you're gonna try to push your lights. If you're gonna try to push more light to your plants,
Mm-hmm.
I definitely would implement that CO2. Just the plant's gonna need it.
Yeah.
And aside from that, CO2. Oh, like in a tent. I actually have ran liquid CO2, liquid CO2 in a tent before. It's doable. It's pretty easy to do. But what's easier is to just get the CO2 bags that I was talking about, um, a week ago or a couple weeks ago. And I like to get the um, smaller ones, and I'll just hang one in each corner. I don't know. I've never put a meter in there, so I don't know how many ppm I'm actually getting of
Mm-hmm.
CO2,
Right.
but I know it's not going to be more than 1400,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Well, at some
yeah.
point, it's really just a point of diminishing return. So it's not like you're going to hurt the plant unless you get up to the,
Yeah. Yeah.
4,000, 5,000 ppm range. Like that's when
Toxic.
you're going to start passing out and burning and shit. Like, which we actually had a scare. You remember? I connected. It got up to
Yeah.
like 3,000. We were like, yo, like, we're kind of like, why do I feel kind of funny in
It got
here?
stuck.
Yeah. And it got stuck and it just kept blowing, dude. I do not recommend propane
Yeah,
CO2 controllers, dude. They're awful, dude. Get the liquid
no,
CO2, dude. Liquid CO2,
no.
please.
Yes, sir.
It's random time.
Oh,
Yo, we gotta do a
that's
random, 5 jumping jacks, dude.
all
That's all
right.
I
What do
got
we
for
got?
today, dude.
5 jumping jacks. All right, take it away, Nick. Count them.
Don't
I
forget
did
to,
8.
yo, it's okay. I think I did 6. Don't forget to do your exercise, folks. Don't
Exercise, stay
forget.
healthy, stay hydrated.
Yep. Yep.
Yes, healthy hydration, healthy body, healthy mind.
Yes, sir. Yeah, dude. I'm feeling.
I'm fine.
I'm
I'm pretty
Oh,
walking.
Dude, well, I think that concludes
I
our
love it.
episode. I mean, I think this
I
did pretty
love that.
good. We're starting to get
Yeah,
into the, let's see, 90-minute range here, so I think that's a pretty good you know,
yeah.
range here. Yeah, definitely cricket. It's definitely time for bed. I can tell you that. Um, is there anything else you want to say to about anything? You know?
Uh, yeah, I mean, off cannabis topic, actually. I had a pretty rough time the other day, so I reached out to my friend Nick, and just told him kind of what was going on, and just the messages I got back from him, and even one of his friends messaged him, and another friend I have here, Randy, messaged me. It's just, and hearing from people, it's good. If you're feeling a certain way, definitely reach out to your friends. Tell your
Definitely.
friends what's going on. Keep them in your life. They'll keep you in the right direction. So, yeah, that's all I got for extras today.
Hell yeah. No, I dig that, man. No, you gotta look out for the homies. You gotta look out for your friends, and make sure make sure that they know that you're there and you care about them, and that's what it's about. You know what I mean? That's all. It's all about love, man.
Absolutely.
It's all about giving love.
Correct.
Hell yeah. All right. Well,
So,
that's it. We're gonna exit out, and the audio is gonna be off, and we'll probably interrupt each other, and that's fine. But this is it. So we appreciate anybody that's listened
it's
or
most likely going to.
So peace out. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Episode 3 is concluded.